All right, it's time. It's Monday, and that means Kathy Holman and Prairie Wife and Heels. Woo! And you brought along a special guest
I
today.
did. We have Brenna Gattimo. Did I get the last name right?
Very close. Good Timo.
Oh, well, I'm totally fine with that. Thank you for correcting me. She is a licensed clinical social worker right here in Casper, and she is on to help us talk about navigating time with the family for the holidays.
Right, your relationships with your family, as we've been talking with Roger and Frank. Yeah, that guy, Frank. During the course of the morning.
Frank, who is thrilled to be participating
how
in
does
this
your
topic.
relationships with your family impact how you spend your holidays?
Yes. Yes. And the reason why we wanted to talk about this and talk about it now before we're really into the holidays is, let's face it, some of this family stuff can be hard.
Yes.
It can be tricky. If you have a divorced family, if you have family that lives far away, if you're struggling with family relationships. So we wanted to talk and give our listeners some tools that they can use as they go into this holiday time that can be tricky. And I also don't want to be a big downer. Like some people, it is amazing and fabulous and fun and wonderful. And go you if that's what family is for the holidays. But that's just not the reality for a lot of people. A lot of families have, divorce that they're dealing with, or it's the first holiday after someone's passed away. So yeah, that's what we wanted to talk about today. And I missed what you guys were talking about this morning. I didn't have my radio on. So
we were just chatting about, like I was telling stories. I have a particular relative. He's gone now. I wish I had him back to argue with now. But, when we would go back to Iowa and have family dinner, he would go out of his way to bait my husband and I with political stuff. I mean, that was it was like a game for him. He would bait, and my husband he knew it was a game, and so he would just jump right in and handle it really well, while I would sit in the corner and seethe.
Isn't that the truth? Sometimes don't you find yourself getting worked up on your spouse's behalf?
Right.
For situations like that. So 86% of Americans plan to spend time with family on Christmas Eve or day, which I thought that was amazing. I thought that was a really good high number. But here's the thing is, who do you spend holidays with? So Susan, I know you used to go to Iowa to visit your parents there. So what do you do now because both of your parents have passed away?
Sometimes we still go back because I have a cousin and an aunt and a lot of good friends back there as well. So sometimes we'll go back and we meet up with Rich's brother-in-law who drives in from Connecticut. And I don't know if we'll have a chance to get away and do that this year, but we still have those sorts of long distance family gatherings.
So how did you guys decide that when you were first married? How did you make that? Because that therein right there is...
Let me tell you a good story to start us off. Okay, so when we first got married, and I was telling the guys this earlier, when we first got married, we weren't thinking in terms of who do we spend families with. And our families were about 90 miles apart, right? Okay. So, I just automatically thought, well, we'll just do everything that I do, So Christmas Eve, and, we have our traditions. We go to church and we have dinner and we open up a few presents, and we get up Christmas morning, we open a few more, and we have stockings and we have breakfast and we lay around and, watch movies and whatever. And he said, well, what about my family? We do the same thing. It's like, whoa.
Dun, 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 dun.
So for a while, every year, it was kind of this, well, I want to say with my family. Well, we did your family last year. Let's do my family.
So did you guys do the every other?
We ended up because we were so close together, and actually it would have been easier had they been 1,000 miles apart.
Yeah.
But because we were so close together, we spent it with both families. So we'd spend Christmas Eve with mine. We'd get up in the morning, we'd have breakfast, we'd pack up everything, and we would drive to his family and spend Christmas Day with his family.
That's like the perfect compromise.
It was, except there was still resentment a little bit,
Oh,
on both parts.
Yeah.
But not so much resentment. That might be too harsh of a word. But we both still felt like we were missing out for a long time because we wanted to spend all of the holiday with the family.
Well, and what I thought was interesting too is it's not just about who you go to, right? I think, Brenna, there's more to it than, like you said, you were upset because it's like, well, isn't my family important to you? Well, what, don't you think that that's something that can happen? So, Brenna, your husband is from
Kenya.
So what do you guys do for that with your boys, his family, your family? Is it just because you're here? Like, talk to me about how you guys decide that.
Yeah, so I got really lucky, and I don't have to worry about the whole in-laws thing.
So marry someone from Kenya, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, so we just do everything with my family, but but everything's done on Christmas Eve. And so Christmas Day, we now have started our own thing of having our family with us and the kids, just breakfast. If people want to come join us, they can. If they don't, that's up to them. And then we just do a simple gift Christmas morning, have a good breakfast, and then the kids just play all day long and we watch Christmas shows. They can just hang out, which is really nice.
Yeah.
But they don't even celebrate Christmas back home in Kenya. New Year's is a much bigger event for them.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So, and really what we're talking about here, I think, is more an extended family. Like, how does it impact how you travel and how you get in grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and cousins and that sort of thing? Because we sort of assume that if you have, your regular family, that you'll be spending it with them.
Well, and I think, so for me, mine's kind of the same situation. My family's all in Wisconsin. My husband's family is in Wyoming. So we, especially when we lived in the same town and when his grandmother was still alive, that's what we did for Christmas, is we spent it with his family. And then when we moved to Casper and we were away from everyone and we had 2 kids at that time, we decided we are always doing Christmas at our house. And anyone that wants to can join us. And now that we have 5 kids, we're very happy we made that decision, because to try and do Christmas presents and write the notes so Santa knows where to find us wherever we could be, not to mention the cost of traveling that time of year with 5 kids, it's a lot. But that being said, anyone that wants to join us is welcome. So we're really excited because Dan's mom is coming up for Christmas this year, and it's been a long time since we've been able to have Christmas with her. My parents have come a couple times. Last year my brother flew in and did Christmas. So that's how we navigate that, is we stay where we are and we don't feel bad about it. And then anyone that wants to can come. And something that I'm very appreciative, which any grandparents that are listening, I want to throw this out there to you. My parents, when my husband and I got married and we had our first child, which is their first grandchild, they said, we don't care when we see you as long as we see you. And that was the most gracious, kind thing they could have done for us, because it completely removed all the pressure of having to divide up and do this and that. So they said, we don't care. It doesn't have to be a holiday. We just want to see you. So grandparents that are listening, please think about saying that to your children, because it's really, truly been huge for us to do that.
It's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of emphasis on the holidays, which can cause a lot of conflict for people.
I agree. Roger, what about you? Did you guys travel?
I was going to say pressure for her when a commute involves an ocean.
Yeah, right.
That's going to be kind of a tough, quick trip to do.
Yeah, I can't do that over the long holiday weekend, can you?
No.
When we were living in Houston, my folks had retired a couple hours away. Karen's folks had retired up to East Texas, maybe 3 hours away. So we just, when they were all alive, well, her folks are still with us, but when there were both grandparents, we swapped off Thanksgiving and Christmas. One place, one the next, and then swap them the year after that. And everybody pretty much understood, I think. My siblings, there's only one of the 3 I really want to see. One is politically annoying, and the other is just annoying. So,
my family's not the only one where the siblings don't all exactly. Notice how we're all talking about parents and visiting parents. None of us are touching base about sister-in-law, brother-in-law, or siblings.
The in-laws are okay. You don't want to ask my sister how she's doing. You will get an endless story.
Hold on, let's have our therapist comment. No, I'm just kidding. Keep on going, Roger.
But one of my brothers is like Susan's relation. Is it your brother or brother-in-law or?
It was her
uncle.
Wanted
to debate you, her uncle.
It was her uncle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a brother like that, and it's just. I'm guessing these days it's even worse. Politics is everything, and they think because we talk about politics on the radio that we want to talk about it all the time. No, not at all. Thank you. Let's talk football, movies, anything.
So actually, since you said that, that was something we were talking about, because we kind of prep for the show and we chit chat for the time before it. And according to psychologytoday.com, they gave 10 tips for kind of surviving the holidays if you have a stressful family situation. And one of them was get everyone else to agree that there are topics that simply will not be discussed because they only bring out the worst in these individuals. But our statement is don't you
Good
think
luck.
having that conversation and saying you're not allowed to talk about this is going to actually
Well, and it's funny too because the ending part says don't allow the conversation to veer into a minefield. And what I said was that's a minefield. Like you're starting to
Bringing it
talk
up.
about this.
Yeah.
So you're setting them on the edge of the minefield and giving them a push.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's like going to my
yes.
brother and I say this with love. Hey, Ben, we can't talk about Hillary Clinton at all.
Yeah.
Or Democrats at all. Like, it's not, you're going to kick it off right there, right? Like, just having the conversation. We can't talk about this. I feel like
Well, they immediately assume you're worried you're going to lose the argument. So that I know that's what my brother would say. Oh, you think you're going to lose? Oh, just knock it off.
Well, maybe
Let's
though.
watch a
I
game.
mean, is it possible that you can sort of set up these parameters when it's not when you're all there at the table? So
family email
or family email or some other time when you're talking to them during the course of the year and just say, hey, when we all get together,
Put a cork in it.
Yeah, exactly.
which
Put a
is
cork
why
in
we're
it.
doing the radio show now
Right.
and not Christmas Eve. Brenna, do you have any advice about that?
So I love Susan's idea about talking about it throughout the course of the year. The other thing is that having a lot of mindfulness work, it's really easy. It's much easier for people to be more mindful about themselves and kind of set themselves up for that. You know, prepping yourself of,
True.
I'm not going to talk about this or I'm not going to allow myself to be baited into this. I will just revert over here or go do a different conversation and just
say,
kind
how
of
about
leave it
them
alone.
Cubs?
Yes,
So
exactly.
what do you have, Brenna, in your wisdom? Do you have a couple phrases that we can give to our listeners to help them disengage from a toxic conversation, or if they can see the truck skidding on the icy highway headed their way during the what do you think? What are some good ways to do that?
Mine
You
is-
said walk away.
Yeah, so a tightening of my chest is when I know that somebody's irked a nerve,
Yeah.
and then I take a deep breath.
So
and
know your
then-
cues, your
Yes.
physical cues that you're
Yep.
feeling stressed. Be aware. Okay, keep
Yes.
on going. You
And
guys
then,
taking notes?
and then I tell myself in my head, okay, I'm not going there. And so I'll either physically get up and leave, or I will change the subject or ask about how something's going on in their life that's personal to them and leave the conversation.
I love that.
alone.
Get them to talk about themselves. And a great way to do that, too, a kind of trick I use, which now everyone that talks to me is going to be like, what? But I'll say, I'll interrupt them mid-sentence and, that reminded me. I wanted to ask you
Well, you do
about
that anyway.
Susie's music. I do interrupt all the time anyway, touche. But, that reminded me. I wanted to talk to you about, Susie's musical concert. I love that. Get them to talk about their family or something else is important that may make your mind freeze over, but you're okay with.
Anybody who does interviews for a living, Susan, you know this. It's always so easy to get people to talk about themselves.
Yes.
It keeps things going when there are lulls in the conversation.
Yep.
I probably would tell my brother, "You've converted me. I agree with everything you said. Now, can we watch a movie? I'm on your side now."
Sarcasm's
maybe that would
always
end
good.
it.
It's something that I was
Or
reading.
when you bite your tongue till you draw blood, maybe that's
Something
the
like that,
time.
yeah.
That's the time. Good. That is another
Well-
physical cue to look for.
And something a little more serious that we were chatting about too, a couple of things, is that one is that looking ahead, and I think this was this psychology.com thing, recognize that what your boundaries are and when it is a point where you just don't invite that person. If that person has caused problems consistently over the years, they're a toxic presence, within your company, is that the time? When is the time that you say, Brianna, they're not invited?
I think that's up to you personally. That's a hard one.
That's a hard one, yes.
If it's constantly bitter afterwards and you start having those resentful feelings and you're not having any positive thoughts and it's just negative every time after the holiday season, that's when a big discussion probably should be had. And if it's time to let it go because that person isn't recognizing what it is that they're contributing to the situation, then yeah, you're going to have to set those boundaries and there's going to be backlash. And that's the big thing about boundaries. They're your boundaries. You get to set them and nobody else has say in it.
So what do you do then if that person says, I noticed that I wasn't invited? Do you think
Well,
that you
hopefully
should
those
use
conversations would have taken place over the years.
Yes,
and
once again, this is why we're doing
this
this.
is
Yeah. Yep.
When you do this, when you drink excessively and cause problems, when you pick fights, when
And it's your
and given
home.
them a chance to resolve that, but they refuse to do that,
Yeah.
then at that point you just say, hey, look, I told you what needed to happen to have you be a part of this gathering, and you seem to not, do you want to talk about it again? Okay, but what you said, it is your home.
Yeah.
This is your home.
Yep.
Now, if you're going to someone else's
That's
home,
what I was about to say.
You've got to find your own boundaries to
set a
You're
time
say,
limit.
okay,
Let the host know 2 hours.
Tell your spouse, okay,
Yep.
we're leaving in an hour and a half,
Yep.
and if I say my
Yep.
safe word, cranberries,
Yeah.
then we're out of here.
Yeah.
We got to go.
Yes.
I think that's or
Yeah.
talk to the host, if it's at your mother's house or your, aunt's house, just talk to them and say, hey, I just want to let you know I struggled last year because of this. I'm going to come because I love you, but don't be upset if I leave an hour and a half into it, or don't be upset if the baby suddenly has a fever. And I think anyone in your family,
no.
that kid excuse, I think anyone in your family would be okay and understand that. And something too I thought was funny that I personally haven't thought about because I've been married for 15 years is the people that are single or recently divorced and dating again, all those dating questions. Are you dating? Why are you still single?
Yeah.
Why are you not married? So maybe just a reminder to listeners to be conscientious about not asking, why don't you have a baby yet? Because you don't know the backstory. Are you going to be having kids? Are you going to be a nun because you've been unmarried for 50 years? Or, maybe just go into it too, thinking about your own behavior and how it can impact other people, whether or not, so maybe have some appropriate questions prepared for your single niece.
And I definitely think that people's intentions are genuinely really good. And the way that questions come across, it's not personal. People just get so excited and they want to know. And they're so excited for your future that even though you're not ready, they're telling you that they're looking forward to that instead of. So kind of rephrasing what those questions mean in your head
Right. Good.
versus just focusing on like the petty stuff of how it's coming across to you.
Okay, very good. We're going to take a quick break, and
Okay.
we'll be back with more in just a minute. It is 9:39. Had to look at the clock at K2 Radio. We're back with Kathy Oldman, Prairie Wife and Heels, and we're talking about families and relationships around the holidays. And, we wanted to touch on a couple of more serious subjects.
Yes.
Having to do, not that, the internal strife with your siblings or your uncles or whatever isn't serious. That's not it. But, there are times when, and we were talking, especially when alcohol gets involved, or people's, they get angry, their passions are inflamed about whatever fights that they've got going on, and they get escalated. And there are times where it can become physically dangerous.
Well, and I think, so Brenna, do you think it's safe to say, to put this advice out there, that if you already know that there's a possibility that your family gathering could be stressful, it would be an extremely intelligent choice to just completely stay away from the alcohol?
Yes.
That it is not going to help. It's not going to relax you and make you able to handle things better. That if you're already going into it, do you think that's good advice, or do you think that's a bunch of hoo-ha?
No, I think it's excellent advice. Yes, alcohol does relax people, but it also eliminates all of our judgments and the filters that we
Filters, right.
have and all of the protective measures that we have. It lowers all of that.
So it
if we
might be
know-
wise to not.
Yeah, so if we know that there might be some pretty big potholes in that road, just not have that available.
Yeah. And then plus two, you can leave whenever you want safely, right?
True.
If things escalate, you can, if you haven't been drinking at all, you can leave whenever you need to safely. So that actually, which we kind of were like giggling a little bit about it.
Oh,
And
yeah, but
then
there's
Brenna
very-
had something to say. So one of the tips from Psychology Today was, if things get out of hand, especially where alcohol or weapons are involved, don't ever hesitate to call the police. And I was kind of giggling at the whole weapons thing, and then in her wisdom and experience, you said
It really does happen.
yeah.
Alcohol and weapons around the holidays. I mean, it's happened several times and we've seen it.
There is a big
Yeah,
spike
she's seen it
in
through work.
domestic violence around the holidays for so many different
Yes.
reasons, and that's one of them.
The depression, the drinking, the feeling of
Right.
overwhelmed, the stress level, all those things that we've kind of talked about on past shows, those can all boil over and cause some pretty horrific situations. So we're going to, as Susan said, be a little more serious. Brenna, can you tell us what are some resources for people here locally?
Yeah, so in those dangerous situations, or if you feel as if there's like a dangerous situation coming up, I always tell people to utilize the police. The Casper Police Department does wonderful trainings. They're called CIT officers.
What does that mean? Like, what's their specialty?
Critical
Right.
incident training.
Yes,
right?
thank you. Yeah, and they really are great with with suicide stuff, with depression, with anxiety, anybody that's mentally struggling, they're able to help. Rather, it's just the training, like the way you look at it.
I guess I never
framework of the
realized, but
brain.
as you're saying it, of course it makes sense that they would have special police officers that are prepared for those domestic situations and mental health issues that come up.
Domestic
I
mental
love
health,
hearing that in Casper we
depression,
have that.
suicide,
That's
yeah.
a great resource.
Yes.
I did not know that. So
Yeah.
that's a good resource. What else do you have
And
for
then,
us?
of course, we've got Wyoming Behavioral Institute, the Self-Help Center, Central Wyoming Counseling Center has a stabilization unit as well, too, that if you're needing a place to go, for a period of time, get some therapy, meet with some people, resources, all of those places will be able to connect you. Oh, Community Action Partnership has a lot of resources available, too, to people. So it's just checking into any of those would be helpful to have information
Well,
on hand.
and also, as we were talking during the break, it's very good to be mindful of your friends who may be facing, a grief and loss during the holidays. I mean, the
Yes.
holidays are, and we've talked about this before, the holidays are a wonderful time, but for whatever reason, whether it's depression, whether it's loss, whether it's illness, whether it's, something, some people, it's not so much for them. And I was telling you gals this story about how, just even singing the cantata in our church, we had a song about people, remembering they are still here for those who have passed. And it was very difficult for, at least 3 of us remembering recent losses that we've had.
Well, and that's why I wanted to talk about this on air, because a stigma that we're kind of trying to break through, I think, with this show is the fact that sometimes things are hard.
Yes.
Right. And even though I'm generally a positive, happy person, there are things that are hard. And I think that people don't realize that they're not alone. And so that's why I love that through this show, we're able to take to the airwaves, and then, people can share it if they want to on their Facebook page. But just, we want to tell people you're not alone if there are times in your life that are hard. And once again, the holidays should be wonderful and fun and amazing, but sometimes they're not. And you might not even not know why, right? Like I've been away from my family for almost 20 years, and every other year, every 2 Christmases, there comes one where I'm just like, I want my mom. Like, I'm getting teary-eyed now
and
talking
I'm the
about
same way,
it.
but
even though
your
it's
mom
fine,
is
and I have my
over
kids,
there,
and I love the holidays, and I've had my tree decorated, and my husband put light. Like, it still can be hard to be away from your family, and it's okay. It's okay.
Well, I think the one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is the financial burden of this time of year, and that alone is very stressful for everybody across our country. Like, it's financially.
And
It's
so you
hard.
can say no to giving gifts or change your perspective of what is the season really about. And Susan and I touched base on that last week. Sadly, there was a tech glitch, and we weren't able to get the show up for people to listen to, but we talked
We're still
about
working
that.
on it.
Yeah, it might still randomly show up. No big deal. But on military
thing-
families too, where you have to be away, I think that's something to be mindful. And there's certain people in my life that I've seen have been alone on the holidays, and it brings me back to when I was in college and had no family at all here in Wyoming, and literally was working graveyard shift at a gas station on Thanksgiving. And I have friends that left their Thanksgiving dinner and brought me food. Little gestures like that. If there's a single person away from their family at your work, invite them to come and be a part of what you're doing. Even if they say no, to be invited is a big deal. And I just saw I interrupted you, so what?
You're good. You're fine, Kathy. The other thing, too, is that when times are tough like that, recognize that you're feeling the way that you're feeling and talk about it to whoever it is, a safe person in the family, a friend, a professional, whoever it is, just talk about it. And one of the tips in here, too, from the Psychology Today was talking about debriefing
yes.
after the holidays as well, too. Taking time to just breathe and just say, we got through it. Here's the positives.
Or
here's
vent.
the negatives.
Is vent an okay word, right?
Yes, vent.
Call that
Let it
girlfriend
out.
up and be. I have a friend of mine who struggles in the holidays, and she always goes for a walk in the middle of Christmas or Thanksgiving dinner, calls me, takes 10 minutes to just all of it, and then you know what I'm saying.
That's smart.
You need to watch the video for the facial expressions that went with that sound effect. And then she goes back and finishes up her, but she just has to take that. Debrief is a much more a nicer word than vent.
Well,
but
taking a break, that's taking a break.
Right.
Sometimes you have to. Fresh air does wonders for people.
even if it's 20 below on Christmas, take that.
Go
that
breathe.
One of the other points in here, too, is that, family time is not therapy time.
Yes.
You know, if you're going to a
Yes.
holiday gathering, that is not the time to drag everything out and try to solve all those problems of way back when I was a kid and you stole my pony and all.
Oh
I mean,
man, what?
just all that stuff. That I mean, and I'm kind of making light of it, but
yeah,
there's
yeah.
there can be a lot of garbage hidden under there, and that's not the time to do it.
And
That's
also,
not
can
the time.
I throw out here? I know this is going to sound inconsequential with everything that we've been talking about. Husbands, take some pictures of your wife with the kids. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Can I just be like, all the pictures are my husband and the kids opening gifts. There's like only one picture of me ever at
'Cause
Christmas
we're always
time
behind the camera.
because I'm the one
Yes.
taking all the pictures.
Roger, do you take
You got-
pictures?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Roger.
Actually, I take the. That's a habit. In the old days, it was reversed because Dad was the one
Oh,
using the old 8mm
Sure.
home vid, and it was just me and my sister and Mom. So maybe that has changed. I don't
so
know.
maybe whoever normally takes the pictures, be aware of it and grab the phone from them and get some pictures. And also, if you're looking for some gift ideas, dads, husbands, get a couple candid shots with your camera that maybe your wife doesn't know of, like a sweet moment with the kids, an everyday moment, and make a beautiful like picture collage printed out for them of just
Okay.
those everyday mom moments. Are
I
we out of
haven't,
time?
I haven't
Oh.
been doing a good job watching the clock. We need to wind it up.
Okay.
So, any last thoughts?
Just be okay with not being okay. Get help. Talk about it. Don't drink if you know there's going to be triggers, and do try and have fun. Enjoy the fun part, right? Anything else?
Yes. Be as positive as you can be about it. Everything's about your mindset. So.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's all about your mindset.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Kathy Holman, Prairie Wife in Heels, and Brenna and Roger and Frank, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks.